G'day friends, welcome to Beneath the Beats. John Dolmayan has one of the tightest drum sounds in metal music. And it's not just the way he plays, but it's his kit setups. Most people call System of a Down a metal band, and they're not wrong, but they completely miss why they sound so different. It's not built on relentless double kick and double kick speed. It's built on groove. And this is where John Dolmayan flips the script, particularly in the Toxicity-era. Today, we're going to look at the tools that John used to amplify that sound to millions of ear holes. I've built this digitally. We're going to break it down, analyze it, and have a look at the sound of John Dolmayan. Let's get stuck into it. All right, mates, now the fun part starts, and I've been looking forward to this one. This is the drum setup breakdown of John's kit from the Toxicity era. Now, I've constructed this here digitally so we can interact with it and really have a good look at what he was using or typically using in that era. Now, I have used a few sources to construct this kit as accurately as possible. I wanted to do a big shout out to Modern Drummer for some old article features that I read in constructing this kit. Some old features of John back in 2001 and the System of a Down features, insightful info. So I've mixed this source along with looking at photographs from that time and video. Now, as you can see, a beautiful Tama drum kit. And John has really used Tama most of his career from what I've seen. This is a Tama Star Classic maple drum set in silk white finish. Now, as you can see, I'll zoom in, did my best here to create that silk white finish. Absolutely beautiful aesthetically on stage. You'll see in this video, actually. As you can see, yeah, it's pretty on par with my setup there. And I really love the clear bass drum head here. You know, it just creates another aesthetic element that looks cool as Now, John was prone to change this setup from time to time. I actually saw him in some festivals of this era take away a couple of toms. In articles, he mentioned that he did this to keep things fresh with his tech. They would sort of experiment and stuff, which I find is super cool. We have a 22x18 kick drum. So yeah, super big kick there, like a cannon of a kick. We'll step up to rack number 1. We have a 10x9 rack tom, followed by a 12x10, and then down here, another rack tom essentially that sort of acts as a floor tom too, but it's racked. It's a floating tom, and it is a 14x12. And then obviously down from that, we have a floor tom, which is a 16x14. So I found this interesting about John's setup. He had this sort of, this floor tom, rack tom vibe, sitting quite high there, and then obviously followed by the floor tom. But the funny angle of it, I mean, it works. I reckon it would work, you know, dynamically, rolling down with fills and stuff. He has another floor tom on the left side of him, and that is an 18x16. And on top of that, we have these two mini timps. Now, I'm going to roll with what I thought these would be sizing-wise. Now, I knew the diameter, so 6x4 and 8x4 I'm rolling with here. So these mini temps, adding an effects element to his drum setup. And you'll hear this throughout a System of a Down set and within songs on the Toxicity record. All right, guys, I almost forgot the bloody snare drum. One of the most crucial parts, of course. Now, John used a Tama Bell Brass 14x6.5 snare here, so tried my best to get the right color there. I did see also in the Modern Drummer article that he also sometimes used a 14x5.5 maple snares. Cymbal setup, obviously looking awesome here, and I was excited to dive in to see what he was using here, because he obviously uses a few effects cymbals, right? Peisty cymbals, and he's always seemed to be a peisty guy too. So starting from left to right, we have an 18 fast crash here, and then stepping down to a 6 bell chime. Interesting little dynamic there with the effects. So bell chime, shout out to anyone who uses these bell chimes. I really want to hit one. They seem like a pretty cool addition to a drum setup, particularly for you metal drummers. Stepping down the hi-hats, a 14 heavy hi-hat here, 18 full crash here. As his first crash above the effects cymbals. Stepping over here, we have a 10 splash, followed by an 8 splash. And then stepping up here, we have a 20 full crash in the signature series. Now, this is an interesting ride cymbal placement here. Now, I've seen him place his ride cymbal's a little bit more flatter than this, but yeah, this is an interesting sort of slant on his ride cymbal here. Now he's obviously trying to get a little bit more ping from this ride cymbal being on this slant here, as opposed to that edge wash or that bow wash that you would typically get from a sort of flatter placement. So here we have a 20 power ride. So same sizing of the 20 crash, but in a ride cymbal form. Now stepping over here, another bell chime in 8 inches to go with that 6-inch over here. And then an 18 power crash. So a different dynamic there in the crash cymbal department. I've never hit one of these, so I don't know what they sound like. But Piety players, feel free to leave some feedback in the comments there. And a China finally rounding out this setup, which is a 18 power China. So yeah, super dynamic cymbal setup here from John. And I reckon that would cover a lot of elements required of System of a Down's tracks in that era. It gives you a few options, bit of improvisation too, even live. I reckon having this would just be super fun, having these elements, you know, these bell chimes. And obviously all Tama hardware, Remo heads it seems from that era, so I'm assuming Emperor coateds on the toms, you know, being a harder hitter and a metal drummer. Maybe on the snare too. Iron Cobra pedals. John Dolmayan's drum setups of the Toxicity era did feature a double kick pedal, but his use of the double kick was more for colour rather than foundation. Just listen to John's use of the double kick pedal here. Here. Essentially, the tool was there, but it never dominated the groove. Instead, it was used for short bursts, accenting, and moments of intensity in tracks. And that pretty much rounds out the Toxicity era drum setup. So I think there's some people out there that would have expected a bigger drum setup from John, particularly from this era. However, he keeps it quite tight. Well, at least here anyway. But how much does that change on the next album? Well, you might have to stick around to find that one out. Friends, it's been a lot of fun this episode. Thanks for sticking around. Feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode of Beneath the Beats. Take care and rock on.